go.
What's this comment? The WAF on my malware finds a way shirt is extremely high, to the point I thought my wife would steal it before I got to wear it. That's a
Well, your wife has good taste.
But what's the WAF?
Wife accrual factor.
Yeah. That might be it. Wife accrual factor. Wife acquisition factor.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
Yes. That's good. Excellent. So
that's no joke, man. I can't bring nothing home good. My wife is
like,
"Oh, this is for me."
All these people give us links, and it's like, it's like, I've got to. Oh shit! Are we streaming?
We are.
Yes. Oh, so if we're talking about wives for a second, Black Hills has new feminine wear. I just want to point out, very happy with it. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Jason. Love the new feminine style BHIS gear.
Yup. There we go. Oh my God. Are we ready to do this? Wonderfully affectionate friend. I like that too.
Do we get the finger yet?
No.
You know what? We got to do a poll. What do we like? Do we like the new finger or the old? Because I'm kind of partial to the old finger.
I'm kind of partial to the old finger also.
Yeah.
Is it the same finger?
No, well, it is, but one's like a graphic, like it's a cartoon version of that finger. Is what we're talking about. So
that must be the new one then you're talking about here that I see in behind the scenes. You want the old one?
I don't know. I like the old one, but then again, I have incredibly bad taste.
Brian gave me the finger. That wasn't very nice, Brian.
Should we run a poll really quick and ask?
Let's do both intros. Let's do both intros, and we're going to let the people decide. So bring up old intro.
Old intro. Here goes.
Hello and welcome, and that was not the start of Black Hills Information Security talking about news. That was the old intro. Now, let's roll the new intro. Hello and welcome to the official start of Black Hills Information Security talking about news. My name is John Strand, and we need your help choosing old finger or new finger. Are we old school or new school? Let's do this. We got old. Anybody like the new? Anybody at all? Anybody like the new intro?
Wow.
Damn.
The people
I do.
Kelly does.
It's very 1990s.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I was like, man, this takes me back to playing CD-ROM games.
Because that's exactly what I'm going for. In this webcast. That's
well done.
Yeah. Old looks like MS clip art versus new. There we go. Oh, I need to hit the play button. All right, so let's go ahead. I don't think we're any. Look at that, Kelly. They're rolling in now. New ones. I think we got nowhere closer. I got nowhere. I got nothing. I just got nothing. That's why we just should never ask people their opinions. We should just do it. And all right, so let's get into the stories because we have some good stories here.
Wicked good.
Let's go through. Okay, we're going to talk about Wicked first. So apparently Mattel pulls thousands of Wicked dolls off the shelves because they were printing adult websites on the package. Apparently they printed on the package wicked.com. And I do this research for you all. Let's go www.
No. I'm glad I'm not sharing the screen.
Oh my goodness.
Not sharing my screen. What do we have here? So what would okay. So apparently Cisco Umbrella blocks this website. And it says it's due to content filtering on report an incorrect block. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to put in my name and I'm going to say, this is a site for dolls. Is a site for, no, I'm not. But yeah, it's under the category pornography, is apparently where they were sending kids. So I can see this mistake. I can get this as a mistake, but How many people do you think are running out trying to get these dolls just because they're going to be like super good collector's items?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, these things will probably fly off the shelves now that that they know that this is exactly what's going to happen if they have one.
Is it a bit like, how weird is it on a scale of 1 to 10 if I went to Walmart and bought like 10 of them? Like would that be
probably
pretty
get
creepy?
a few looks
in South Dakota?
In South Dakota, yeah.
Pretty weird.
Pretty weird. Thanks. Yeah, you're probably right about that. But I like, this just goes to show that mistakes like this happen all the time. And there, there's some poor intern that did this, or at least some intern's going to get blamed for it. Because it had to go through 9 layers of executive approval before it goes anywhere. So
isn't that the whole reason to have interns, John? Is so that
just so we can blame people, right?
They are the hired scapegoats.
They are the hired scapegoats. That and systems administrators. It's like, we're going to need another system admin.
Does that mean you're the default scapegoat here, John? Because you're the managing intern?
I am the managing intern. I get all of the shit, right?
Good one, Zach.
He just brought that up straight to my LinkedIn profile. Damn, straight to the heart. It is not the first time this kind of thing happened. I remember the air freshener with a male anatomy part on it. We got completely swamped, people buying that air freshener. So it just goes to show sex sells. I feel like there's better jokes. Like if I was more awake and more caffeinated, I would have better jokes on this as well. It was in one of the executive site and they wanted more traffic. How much you want to bet that wicked.com all of a sudden is getting a lot more traffic?
People are going there for their dolls.
Yeah,
exactly. But no, it's just how bad it is.
On a serious note, though, remember there are children, young adults who do have phones. We've talked about that previously on the newscast where kids are getting phones that aren't necessarily locked down with security settings, and they could very easily go to that website and mom and dad wouldn't know about it. So there is a serious angle to this. I'm not going to tell you not to buy the dolls. I'm going to say, hey, if you don't know what your kids are doing on their phones, it's probably a good time to look.
My daughter, my oldest daughter, she's almost 11 and she's been asking about a phone lately. I said, honey, here's what you got to understand is when I give you a phone, I don't give you access to the internet. I give the internet access to you. And that's a scary problem.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
That's really, dude, I don't care how you dice it. I get what you're saying, but that sounds so horrible.
Yeah, it does.
The way you sell that. Yeah.
I'm very hesitant.
I'm very hesitant. I don't think you want to say that out loud on a webcast with like recorded.
Yeah.
Because somebody could just take that one snippet of what you said without context and be like, honey, I'm giving the internet access to you. And it's just it's bad. It's bad. And I think we're about as far as we want to go down this rabbit hole. Speaking of rabbit holes, do we want to talk about Office apps crashing on Windows 11 with CrowdStrike antivirus?
Sure.
We want to get that SEO, don't we?
Oh my God. Yeah, because that's what people are looking for, right? I want to know about CrowdStrike. Would this even be that big of an issue at all if it wasn't for what happened earlier this year?
Well, it'd probably be more focused on the fact that it looks like it's Windows 11's update that's causing it.
Yeah,
not
it's the current
necessarily, right?
Yeah.
It just so happens to be not loving CrowdStrike and not the other way around.
Well, this update also had another problem with a voice app that put them onto pause, and I hadn't heard that it gone. I knew that they'd fixed that, but I had not heard that it had gone completely public yet at this point in time. I guess we're finding out now.
But let's talk about responsibility for a second here.
Yes.
CrowdStrike stepped in and said, listen, we know that there's a problem. We're going to turn on enhanced exploit vulnerability prevention policy. And second of all, Microsoft, and this has been happening for years, those of us who've been around for a while, know that Microsoft can control who gets what deployments. They've already addressed the situation and said, we're not going to deploy it to the voice systems. We're not going to deploy it on those running this particular setup. So that's why I say, John, I think it's kind of a non-story. I think they're cashing in on CrowdStrike's claim to fame.
I mean, you're definitely going to get clicks for the article. We're talking about it, right? I mean, but I go back to CrowdStrike. like what they did, of course, I think we can all agree is bad, right? Like from the software development, that's bad. We can all agree, not good, right? And after a certain point, like the bad news that you continue to get with these particular stories is it really is just people like chasing the narrative of CrowdStrike being a horrible company, which they're not. I want to make that clear. CrowdStrike is totally not paying me yet, although this shirt is black and empty. CrowdStrike, like you could totally buy me off with a whole bunch of low sodium V8. But it's just I don't think that they deserve this type of the problems and the news cycles that are there. But it's going to be like this for a while, right? It was like, Adobe, they had their time. Microsoft, of course, had multiple times where they just had really crappy news cycles. But like I said, the biggest thing that concerns me from the previous one is whenever you're crashing hospital systems, there's no way any hospital is going to bring CrowdStrike back in. Even if they, they're better now. Trust us, nobody wants to take on that risk for these very, very mission critical and life critical applications, because if anything goes wrong, the person that brings them in the front door is inevitably going to get blamed, like an intern, like a managing intern, like a systems administrator. They're going to get blamed for everything that goes wrong because CrowdStrike was in the news. And I think that these stories just continue to feed that cycle for another cycle turn.
You build 1,000 bridges and you have one global outage.
I like how you didn't go the goat story. You didn't go the goat story. Well done, sir. So, all right, let's move on. Does anybody else have a story they'd like to talk about? I'm going to go get myself a low sodium V8 while that news story gets queued up. You guys choose the next one. I'm going to go get a low sodium V8. I'll be right back.
What was the one about the accidental upgrade from Windows Server 2022 to 2025?
That's a juicy story.
Yeah, that sounds like it was a dumpster fire.
So
wait, which one? What was that under? I'm sorry, I got to find it.
It's up towards the top, Zach.
It's the one that says
there it is.
Mislabeled patch sends Windows Server.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not Ryan, y'all.
It's okay.
We'll get there.
Thank goodness.
We know.
I'm not a serial killer. I'm sorry.
Daniel, you want to talk about this one?
Well, I thought I saw the headline and was like, oh, that seems bad. That seems like, because, right, I love the article kind of just goes on to the fact that, upgrades are usually a cool thing. You get new stuff, new bells, new whistles, patches, fixes, things are more optimized.
Breaking your existing applications.
Everybody loves it, except when you're not expecting it to happen. You start to pull all your hair out, and that was the incident in 2015 that happened to me. That's why this. But no, we don't like to do it without like a plan where we go, what we're going to do? We're going to upgrade from one thing to the other because we got tons and tons of testing to do and make sure everything works. Because to John's point, if it doesn't, well, then we're going to need to, think our way through that problem before we hit the deploy to production button. So
you shouldn't YOLO it?
No,
you just know that somewhere out there a sysadmin did this and it worked and nothing broke, and he's just like,
whatever.
I'm not taking the bus home.
I know kung fu.
It's like Final Destination. Like he's looking at the balance of like positive and negative karma in his life, and right now he knows that balance is way tipped too far. Bad things are going to happen, like pianos falling out of the sky and smashing him.
He wishes he had played the lottery instead of pushing that button.
Yeah. Yep.
Have we ever had this happen before? Is this a new thing? Like, I don't remember ever hearing.
It's not new.
I can't think of an entire operating system upgrade. And am I clipping? Yeah. Is my audio clipping?
No, you sound good.
No.
All right, sounds good. I can't think of an entire operating system upgrade.
Yeah. Oh, this happened back with 3.5.1 to 4. Also, it may have happened within the Windows 95 cycles.
Kelly, I think I love you. That's so awesome. God, that is the coolest thing ever. Windows 3.5 to 4. It's like that's dropping like some serious knowledge. Holy crap.
Deep cut right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just called me old. Thank you.
No, I didn't. I have no soapbox to call anybody old. I just don't on that as well.
Well, the other interesting thing about this article is there's so much noise right now about Windows 10 to Windows 11 upgrade. Remember last week we were talking about we're going to pay you $30 to be able to run Windows 10, that whole discussion. And then this also happens. So Microsoft, they're always working on trust. They tell us they've got the Security Trust Center, but this just kind of adds confusion to it. And also, when you're sysadmin and you're trying to build trust within your organization, and it's very easy for something like this to happen, you lose credibility, and it's frustrating. And that's why we install Linux.
Yeah. I didn't see that. That was a hard left turn.
Yeah.
I agree with that turn. I do. So we have seen this with software though, right? If you remember, AV would be bundled with all kinds of anti-spyware that would literally just be spyware and adware popping up. I think it was Symantec, McAfee, or both a number of years ago that did that. But just surprise upgrades and surprise software installs are never, ever a good thing.
No.
Oh my God. Could you imagine, like, from your auditor's perspective, being audited in the middle of something like this? And like, do you guys do auditing? Like, what is it? Control number 2? Are you guys auditing your software and your secure configuration? Yes, we are. And it's like, why is that server running 2025? Like, what? Oh God. It's like the auditor's just like, fail. And then there's like brimstone and you smell sulfur. That's how those types of audits go in my head.
Wait, don't you always smell sulfur and brimstone when the auditors show up?
Always. Like when they're walking around. Yeah.
I had a friend going through 27001 and they were like, well, we're not doing stupid stuff like having, passwords under keyboards. They're like, well, flipped one over and there was a password on it. And
oh, geez.
Right there.
Really?
Right there. Yep. Right there. All right. So let's talk about some good news, I think. I don't know. But the suspected Snowflake hacker has been arrested in Canada. Apparently, for more than a week, Justice or Waifu, the hacker linked to the AT&T, Ticketmaster, and other breaches, has been not responding to messages because they have been arrested in Canada. So well done, Mounties. By the way, don't mess around with Canadian Royal Mounted Police. Those guys do not play. They are hardcore. But I think this is good news. I think anytime we get a win, we should take it, right?
Amen.
Agreed.
And we've been on a tear here lately. A lot of hackers being arrested lately and sites being taken down. So yeah, keep kicking butt out there.
Yeah, and that brings me to another story. But go ahead, Kelly. You were going to say something about this one.
Oh, I was just going to ask Daniel, do you think there will be a change in that with the new administration? Not being political, this is all about cyber.
Yeah, I don't think so. I feel like these are one of those things that just kind of like, oh, it's doing fine. It seems to be fairly effective. We feel like with CISA and everything. I can't imagine. What's that?
Let's just keep the ball rolling, right?
Yeah, you just keep it going. If it's not doing anything that's causing an issue and it's actually being effective, you kind of go, well, good job, previous administration.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Because we all know that administrations are like that. Once again, not being political. They all hate each other is what I'm saying.
They do indeed.
And that leads into another story that Interpol Cybercrime Sweep. This is an article from PC Mag, kind of continuing on the theme of good news. But Interpol Cybercrime Sweep takes down 22,000 IP addresses and arrests 41. And these are cyber criminals that were using generative AI to spend spear phishing emails, Interpol says, which is just like, I actually felt pretty good because some other stories that I've read about this is this group and these people that were doing this were also some of the groups that were going after like hospitals and schools and like just things you shouldn't go after. I mean, you shouldn't hack, period, right? But there has to be a line. There has to be some honor among thieves. And I think this is a good news story. That once again, we need to take the wins where we can get them.
Yeah, it's always nice. I mean, they're fairly depraved on what they'll allow or go for anymore. Like I'm to me, like sextortion. Wow,
yeah.
Why? Why is this a thing?
Oh, one of my friends got hit with that via text message and was like, I just want to let you know, Bill, that I've seen your filthy, filthy browser history and I'm going to send it to everybody. and we're going to share it with all your family and all your friends. And I saw that, and we were all laughing about it when it came in because we all work in computer security, but we sat back and we started thinking about it in terms of just like a normal person getting hit by something like that. Like, that's got to be devastating. And you're probably thinking, no, maybe they don't have what they say they have, but then again, they might. And I mean, for me personally, do I want to like defend myself for going to wicked.com on my phone at home because I had to know? I wouldn't share that publicly. I wouldn't want that shared publicly. By the way, that site, as far as adult sites, really, really tame, by the way, like crazy. Like, I'm sure it gets worse, but seriously, you put those threats down on people. And it could even be worse. Like, let's say, you're not even like, you don't ever go to porn websites. They can totally sell. I remember this would have been early to mid 2000s. There was a case that I worked on where somebody broke into someone else's email and sent child pornography to all of the people in that person's address list. So that was probably, I think, one of the worst like attacks that I've ever seen, because that person was absolutely devastated. It was clearly a hack. It was clearly attack, but talking with that person months and months after the engagement, they were still shunned by the circles that they were in. So just kind of scummy ways of doing things.
Yeah, just ruining people like for some money.
Yeah. For the love of money.
So the other interesting bit about that article,
go for it.
Yes, John, I'm glad you pointed out some good news, because usually we have bad news on the website. The other interesting thing was how they tied in the use of generative AI in the article.
Yep.
And there's so many articles about, oh my goodness, AI is going to be the death of us. It's the worst thing ever. It's nice to see a positive example of Gen AI being used to make the cybers better.
And I think it can definitely be used for that, right? I'm just worried about it becoming an arms race between the bad and the good, and I hope we don't lose that arms race, right? Because that generative AI, like I've seen some of the videos from some of the organizations that we've done incidents on, where they set up video conferences and they start demanding that money get transferred. It is so good. It is so well done. I just hope that we're prepared for it. But I think that goes back to training, Kelly. We used to talk all the time with Lance about what is the value of, doing security awareness training. And I feel like security awareness training now is probably far more important than it ever was, because, we never got trained for the crap links like, hey, UPS shipping notification. And now we have to train people for like video calls from their boss that looks and sounds exactly like their boss. That's some scary stuff. That's some really scary stuff.
Yeah, so do any of you guys worry about that with how much content you have out there on the internet right now? Like how much video, like somebody could just pull down and generate?
I'm going to let Daniel go first.
Yeah, I absolutely worry about that. It's something I used to talk with Sophia, who I used to work with. She does voiceover stuff and a lot of on-camera things as well. So she was really invested into what AI could be done. And she got contacted by quite a few people about, can we use your voice to train our AI? We'll pay you X amount of dollars. And it's like, I don't know that I want to do that. I don't know that I want to feed the beast that fast and get it to grow that quickly. I think we need time to adjust and to be able to find an equilibrium of some kind with AI before we just kind of let that dog off the leash and let it run. Because we've seen, as to John's point, what horrible, horrible things are already being done. So for me, heck yeah, I worry about someone clipping up my stuff or using the video and audio that I have out there of myself that is freely available, and utilizing it for something I wouldn't want to be a part of. And then you got to go through, how do I get that taken down? That could take up all your day. Maybe it does something that's really horrible, and now you're like in John's friend, whose people just assumed it was you, because you know how everybody loves to get the full story before they make a judgment call. And now you're just burned. You're blackballed in X, Y, and Z places because they thought you did something bad. You didn't even do it. So yeah, I'm worried about that to that extent. So I'd like to see us slow down the development of it and the implementation of it so that we can kind of get a hold of it. But I don't know how that's going to happen.
So it doesn't concern me as much. There's a bunch of reasons why, but I think for a long time I've been protecting myself. And we'll get into this a little bit, but like, I don't travel hardly ever without my wife, right? So if somebody was like, "Oh, John was at this con and he, had an affair," my wife would be like, "That would have been a surprise." I don't remember that happening. So if they were trying to use something like that, if it was some kind of illegal pornography, I've been working with law enforcement for years. I think the thing that scares me the most about AI when we're talking about our field is the idea of stealing who we are to train AI models moving forward. And we'll talk about some training organizations and things like that in a bit. But there are organizations out there that are taking the content that's created by people in this industry. Like I see the 404 website showing up again and again and again, and now they're going behind a paywall. Or you look at, CNET articles from years and years and years ago, and you have all this, and all of that is just getting fed into this monstrous plagiarism engine. And you have all this work, and then you have the models from me presenting year after year after year after year after year. I am 99% certain that somebody could create a class of AI John Strand videos just doing my class. It could absolutely do that, right? And I think that's the thing that scares me, is I feel, Daniel, that in a lot of ways, especially people that are in the education realm, right, we are literally training the models that are going to be part of our demise. And as I mentioned, one of the organizations I used to do work with, not SANS, different group. I just need to make sure that that's clear, because usually when I say that, I'm talking about SANS. They're basically taking all the calls and all of the presentations and everything that their faculty create, and they're sending it through AI models, and then they're creating these LLMs that the customers can use to get these answers and get these questions taken care of. And there's no reimbursement model. There's no funding model going back to the people that built that data. And that's the thing I think that scares me the most, is you have people that develop years developing a skill, and then it's just going to be co-opted and then just fed in through another LLM and then kicked out on the other side. So that's my concern.
Yeah, no, that's a good concern. I mean, that's absolutely right. If someone were to take your years of content and then go, yeah, I can use that now to create my own bot or whatever that's AI, get the same exact type of training for whatever low price that's going to be. I mean, we've always dealt with some types of piracy, and
we always have, right?
Yeah, but this is next level kind of stuff, and it's if they create an AI that's not necessarily you but is trained off of you, that seems like it would be extremely difficult to fight
or pin down. Right.
Yeah.
Now it's easy for me because if all of a sudden the if the LLM model starts talking about the deliciousness of low sodium V8, or they start spouting off Sasquatch memes, that they're like, yeah, that model was trained on John Strand's data at that point, because no one drinks the delicious low sodium V8 except for John Strand. That's it. That's the only.
And no one drinks it like you, John.
So let me add to the conversation when we're talking about communication, right? Because isn't that what training and teaching and consulting is really all about? So when we talk about communications, I, as the communicator, I own my intent. I know what I intended when I said what I said, but usually I don't own the impact. So when we kind of measure in my intent versus the impact on who received the communication or heard the communication, that's where I think AI breaks down. So as long as I can control my intent and I can help form the impact that my communication has on people or in a webinar or in a training model, I'm more comfortable with that than just dumping it into an LLM and not knowing how it's going to impact those viewing it.
Or how they can take that intent, twist it into something very, very wicked.
This is we're not the only group that has these sorts of issues. I mean, you could take a look across news, especially the entertainment and voiceover fields, where things are being trained on it. People are using it. It's really an extension of the deep fake models and how much easier those are becoming. And where does the truth lie and where does the truth not lie in it all? And I think, honestly, what we need these companies that are creating the LLMs to come up with some sort of, I hate to use the term mark of the web, but mark of the AI or something, to say that when you create something, this is going to be marked as being AI generated in some sort of way that makes it more difficult for somebody to remove that mark. so that way we know it was generated by artificial intelligence, that it is some sort of deep fake, and we can put our stamp of approval or disapproval on it. I think that's really where the future, at least in the short term, has to go on this sort of thing.
Excellent. All right, so let's move on. I think that's a good point to kind of close that out, because we can talk about, like, we literally just do an entire podcast on that. But one that I think, once again, damn, this is just good news. Google Cloud to mandate MFA for all users in 2025.
Amen.
Bad plan.
What?
Right?
What?
This,
Like,
I said, how is this a bad plan, right?
oh my God, this is so good.
Oh, sorry, John. I was just going to say, now everybody's aunts, uncles, and grandparents are going to be calling them saying, what am I supposed to do?
Or more than likely, they're going to be like, well, I'm going to move my account over to Yahoo, so I don't have to, I don't know if Yahoo.
AOL.
Yeah. Hotmail. It's just, wow, why hasn't this been in place for a long time? Even SMS text. Radis brought up SMS text. And I know a lot of people like crap on the idea of SMS-based two-factor authentication. We banned it at BHIS, right? Because our target model involves, our threat model involves nation states. Target model. Talk about a Freudian slip. But that's us, right? But for aunts and uncles and grandparents and parents, there's nothing wrong with SMS-based two-factor authentication, because it's going to help them deal with like their stupid passwords of password 1234, because no one's going to guess that. This is great. I think that this is just fantastic that they're moving this and rolling this out to all their users. By the end of next year. Wow.
I'm going to be the one to ask the stupidest question in the world on this, because reading through the article, all it keeps saying is Google Cloud, just like AWS Cloud, just like Azure Cloud. Does it really affect Gmail? It does not say anywhere that it's going to be for the home users. This really sounds like we're talking enterprise level only.
I took it as hold on. Company said in a blog post. Here we go. Let's do it. When they say all users, I took that to mean all users. Well, millions of users worldwide.
It's a fair question.
I think it is a fair question. I don't think it's a dumb question at all.
That's all I know how to ask are dumb questions, whether they're fair or not.
All right, so here we go. We'll require it early next year. It's going to be users sign into password for Google Cloud Council, Firebase, G Cloud, and other platforms. And then the end of the year, federated users will expend FMA all users who federate authentication to Google Cloud. They'll have flexible options to meet this requirement. I don't know.
That means Shecky goes first.
Yeah, that means he gets Am I not going to be happy? Well, it sounds like if you're a corporate account, you're going to have to have it, which from our perspective of what we're dealing with, maybe not the aunts and uncles that I was hopeful for, but seriously, if we can just push it out to corporate accounts, I think that we would take that.
Honestly, your aunts and uncles out there are probably more secure than your average C-level, right? Because they just want to just shut all this security up. I can't do what I want to do.
ZMF asks if Gmail already requires MFA. No, it does not. I know plenty of people that use Gmail that do not have MFA.
I just had a family member get hit last week. And I don't know if you guys have had that conversation. It's like, they call you up and it's like, dear God, you got hacked. Yeah, I did. Can you talk me through? It's like, well, I had an email and it said it was from PayPal and it looked pretty urgent. And then I clicked on it and it had me authenticate. And then I did. And it's like, so how long was your password? Well, it was 6 characters. Oh, God.
I think there's another piece of good news attached to this, though. Google's addressing small, medium-sized businesses that may be using federated accounts, but may not be as large as BHIS or whomever. We've talked before on the podcast about how small, medium-sized businesses don't necessarily have cybersecurity resources or knowledge. So I do believe we are tackling low-hanging fruit, even if it isn't our aunts and uncles here.
Well,
totally agreed that there definitely is a level of low-hanging fruit that's being tackled upon all of this. I want people to be realistic about it, as opposed to saying, oh, Google's doing MFA everywhere and all moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles are now going to have to be forced to do the MFA thing. It's difficult enough to get them to do it for something like Facebook or any sort of social media, let alone their email.
Can we start a phishing campaign for aunts and uncles that trick them into turning on MFA?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Right?
Yeah. And
Like
you
the
go,
hackers
Your
can
Honor,
do it for bad. Why can't we use this power for good?
use this power for good. Start spear phishing people. It's like I clicked the link and all of a sudden I had to enroll in MFA. It's like you'll get sued. People will be like, look at the damage you've caused me, Daniel. Look at what you've done. I have to spend literally 10 extra seconds logging in once every 90 days. Like
We
that's
had to bring in a crisis counselor.
bringing a crisis counselor.
Do you guys ever think we'll get to a point where you'll have more social media sites that are forcing MFA at some point?
I think we are. Absolutely. I think that it's just a matter of time. I think it's heading that way because they don't want the liability of that stuff. They just don't. I mean, it's a bad news story whenever it's a third-party service that gets compromised just because they allow people to do stupid things. But we deal with that all the time, Zach. I think that that's interesting, not just social media, but as pen testers, if we're doing a web app assessment, we're like, hey, your minimum password compliance is 6 characters and there's no MFA. That's a critical. And I get to fight customers all the time on that. So the conversation goes like this. It's like, so you said that this is critical. Yes, it is. But you didn't hack into our website using that technique. I'm like, great. Do you want us to password spray your users, gain access to your user accounts to prove that we got access to that? And usually the customer is like, well, no, that seems bad, having a pen testing team break into a bunch of our customer accounts. But it's one of those like gray areas in computer security testing where the vast majority of pen tests, we can show that we can harvest credentials. We may be able to do like credential stuffing and not actually use the attack, but actually gaining access to things like bank accounts, passport information, things like that. That's usually well outside of the scope that we can do in that test. And many times the actual customer thinks they can give us that authorization, but they really can't. So these areas don't go tested. And now we end up in a situation where somebody gets popped using that technique. And I think that that's ultimately what's going to move the needle. So I look at it as one of those areas that just doesn't get tested very often. And because it's not tested very often, a lot of organizations, social media sites don't look at it as a problem until it's one that's sitting right on their doorstep.
John, can you speak to why you will see that in today's day and age? Like, it's not 1996. Why are people creating websites with such low security measures? Like,
because they created the website in 1996. It's just, and the guy that wrote the code is dead.
and the blink tags are still on, right?
Blink tags are still going. But no, the other reason why, Daniel, is you got to remember, and this gets into my soapbox that I get on all the time. PCI just required, increasing password complexity up from 7 last year. Like that was their minimum, 7 characters, right? And if we're looking at the NIST framework, they still don't have, well, I think they did amend it. And now it's up to like, I think 13 characters. I can't remember what NIST set it to. I have to go back and look at it again. But you had these standards that had really garbage password complexity standards for years that go all the way back to the NIST Green Book. And that's what they build their website to. So when you're talking to developers, they're like, well, we're in compliance with PCI, get bet pen tester. And we'd have to deal with that. And now it's getting better. It's finally getting better. So there's a number of reasons why that occurs. But one of the biggest was because compliance standards suck.
That's such an ironic thing that the security standard is telling them that they are secure and not that, that security standard's 10, 12 years old or whatever.
Yeah, but a lot of people look at it like when they write the standards, they always tell me, they're like, well, this was the minimum. Right. The minimum. We encourage passphrases. I'm like, as soon as you create the minimum, that's what it's going to be.
That's the standard. Yeah.
That's the standard. And that's the standard we've had since 1985. And like I said, kudos to PCI for stepping it up. Nothing but credit for them. Kudos actually for NIST for kind of modifying things after, I don't think we had anything to do with it.
Do you think they're ever going to get to where they're creating standards that are forward-looking instead of what's now?
No. And the reason for that is the standards are created. Like if you're ever part of a standards board, it's one of the worst things you can possibly do. It's a lot like politics, right? Like all of the people that want to be president should automatically be disqualified for being president because they want to be president. Now, I don't care what your political affiliation is. You got to agree with me on that,
I
right?
do. Totally.
So you get these people that end up on these boards, and whenever they first start creating and assembling the Avengers, they like to look at resumes of people. Like, this person has a PhD, this person works at this particular company as a CIO or whatever. But a lot of these people just don't actually come with any real world experience in what it actually takes to secure an environment, and what it takes to break into an environment, what it takes to respond to an incident. And like I said, I genuinely blame a lot of people in academia, because a tremendous amount of them, they have these ideas, they have these beliefs, but they've never really been in the real world, and they end up on these boards and developing these new standards moving forward.
Listen, John, if there's anything I know about PhDs, is that they know about the real life because they took a class on it.
They did. They took a class. By the way, Simply Cyber people, this doesn't apply to Jerry.
No.
I want to make that very clear. Like, homeboy is awesome, and if we could have every PhD on the planet emulate him, we wouldn't have this this problem. Hackchar said, "I quit IEEE due to their terrible security publications. For a while, I was with that organization. I just got busy and I couldn't be part of it. But it was the same type of swirl where people would argue about stupid shit over and over and over again. And I remember being on boards, not IEEE, but being on boards for different states trying to establish security standards and arguing with them about 7-character passwords and how that's really stupid. And I loved it anytime I was in the meeting where someone would say, well, can you prove to us it's bad? Yes. Yes, I can. Let me do a screen share, boys and girls. And then you could actually demonstrate that. But a lot of the people don't understand the risk unless it's demonstrated to them. And I think that that's the big problem that happens with academic level security and practitioners as well. There you go. NIST guideline was updated. Minimum of 8 characters in length should require passwords to be a minimum length of 15 characters. So that's a great update. Like, nothing but kudos to NIST for making that change. So well done, NIST. Well done. All right. I got a couple more I want to get to, y'all. Cisco scores a perfect 10.
Oh no.
It finally happened. I think.
Did they stick the landing?
They stuck the landing.
They like Mary Lou Retton.
She just, boom, right to the mat, arms up, perfect arch back, present, nailed. They're hugging their coaches. They're thanking, like, when they receive their award, they're like, I'd like to thank all the shoulders of the amazing people that I stand on the backs of, the adaptive security appliance crew, the people that invented network address translation. Without you, there would be no Cisco today. Shout out to my peeps and this history. All the companies that Cisco acquired and drove into the ground, we couldn't get here without you all. Like, this type of CVSS score, it just doesn't happen by mistake. All the developers that were rushed to get their code out, like in the middle of the night, security be damned, like, all of you made this possible. Well done, Cisco. Well done. Perfect 10. And it's in something called the ultra reliable wireless backhaul, which I think is just classic.
I'm enjoying. I'm actually on the Cisco site, and it says workarounds. There are no workarounds that address this vulnerability.
Hence 10, right 10. To the mat. Boom, double feet.
Oh, it's amazing.
They when they did this, they did it in slow motion to make sure that as they were doing their giant over the high bar, that their legs weren't separated. Their toes were perfectly in alignment. They just nailed this. QA, Root Beer says QA is for suckers.
That's right. Yeah, no, this is chef's kiss right here, huh?
I think it's great. Now watch it, like, they're going to be mad, and they're going to be like, get it dropped to a 9.9. And there'll be some political backlash about it being a perfect 10. Fortinet, honestly, is more likely to get an 11. They don't go to 11. 10. 10 is as high as it goes.
Fortinet's like, hold my beer.
We're not playing by Spinal Tap rules here. Like, established 10 is 10. So, although
we've had the sorry, John.
Go ahead, Kelly.
I was just going to say, we've had the conversation on the news before about how many 10s or how many high scores there's been. And to the point we had a little earlier in the conversation about the effectiveness of CISA, we are seeing them giving out much higher scores and saying, listen, we're not going to shy away from saying this is really, really bad.
Yeah. But okay, so get to that. does a 10 mean more than a 9.9 or a 9.8 or a 9.7? Like they're all going to hurt really bad. There's exploits available. They're going to hit. But you know what? A perfect 10 gets you talking about it. And that's kind of what we need.
Yeah. Do we end up getting alert fatigue for 9.8s?
I think we did. We
Yeah.
did. And it might be good. Maybe they save 10s for these special occasions. But no, it's a 10. Wow.
Maybe a 10 gets a CISO's attention, or it
Maybe.
gets the risk committee's attention.
I would hope so. God, we got to get something to get the attention there.
I think some of the big takeaways on this, because I saw this when it came out last week, and was talking with my CISO about this, and there were two things that came to mind. Number one, it's an HTTP attack on the web console for it. How many times have we said that those web consoles, those admin consoles, should not be exposed to the internet?
All the time. Yep.
The second
thing
thing
make
is,
it difficult for me to
Didn't we
stuff
do a
with
check on
phone and
this?
underwear, bro.
Mike, didn't we do a check on this? Like how many of them were exposed on Shodan?
I have not done that sort of check at this point in time.
Okay, keep talking. I'm going to try to see if I can do a Shodan search.
The second thing, and I think the more worrying part about it, is I don't know many companies that use that backhaul. I've heard of a lot of municipal wireless that does that, Metro Wireless, that uses that backhaul. And that is where my concern actually lies in more, is in the government sort of thing, such a wide area thing, especially if they've got the interface open to where a public person can get at it over the course of that backhaul.
Trying to see if there's a Shodan search for this.
You would think that it would be underneath the CVE.
Well, everybody's doing this with us. See if we can get this. Because you know that these things are exposed. I bet you're talking tens of thousands of these.
You want to share your screen, John? Show everybody what you're doing?
No, I'm just fumbling around right
He's
now.
on
He's on
wicked.com.
Wicked.com.
But I'm telling you right now, it is not at wicked.com.
He's reading his sextortion email right now.
Yeah, I'm reading the sextortion.
What are you talking about?
Want everyone to know about you.
You horrible person.
Yeah, there's one. Yeah, I don't know what the header is for that, because then we could do a search on that. Does anybody have access to one of those devices so we could do a search on that string for the server identification? No, that doesn't look like it. But like I said, I bet you there's a lot of those.
Oh, agreed. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of them, a whole ton of them out there. But it goes back to our point of, don't put a management interface out on the internet.
But Mike, that's one of those things when we talk about it, it's another fight, right?
Yep.
Like we get into pen testing once again, and this is just what we do, and that's fine. It's just part of the game, and that's okay. It doesn't bother me all that much. But I think that people need to understand that a lot of this stuff just doesn't get checked or doesn't get fixed because it's not being tested properly for a number of reasons. Okay, there we go. Internet. Hold on. Okay. Okay, that's not it. I feel like I'm getting close.
So John, to your point about being tested annually, my understanding is companies should have different types of pen tests. Is there a recommendation on how to rotate different types of pen tests?
There is. So one of the things that we're working on in developing the new penetration testing execution standard is basically there's multiple levels, right? So you'll have a standard vulnerability scan, and there's a lot of value in doing a vulnerability assessment, right? You do a vulnerability scan, you validate those findings, you work with the customer to get them fixed. And that's the Pareto principle. That's 80-20. When you move up to a penetration test, now you're not just scanning for vulnerabilities. You're actively exploiting those vulnerabilities for the purposes of demonstrating the proven risk around the exploitation of that vulnerability. Now that takes a little bit more time, and it also increases the risk for the organization. Finally, you start moving up into like red teams, purple teams, and continuous pen testing, and you're getting into highly specialized and tends to be more expensive type testing. But I think a lot of organizations have just got to know what type of test they're looking for. Like it would be a huge mistake to hire somebody to do a pen test and expect a red team. Pen tests are not stealthy. It's not meant to be stealthy. A lot of times you're using vulnerability scanners and you're brute forcing password authentication because there's a very short period of time associated with it. However, when you move to a red team, now you're being a lot more stealthy. That takes more time. That takes more customer bespoke software that you need to create for that particular attack. So I think that that's a really good point, Kelly, that people understand that there's different types of levels associated with the testing. Plus, that's not even talking about web application testing or wireless pen testing or looking at a specific application and doing reverse engineering. So it is very complicated. That's okay. Any firm that you work with should help you kind of navigate that to get to the right thing. Right. Do we want to hit the last story then?
Is it a juicy one?
It is. H.I.G Capital and Thoma Bravo are acquiring CompTIA.
Boy.
Yeah.
Well, how many people have a CompTIA certification?
I think I do. I think I got drunk one night and got one years ago.
Well, back in the old days, that was really what was available. Or you had your Microsoft 351 certification.
Yep. I'm trying to figure out how much they acquired it for.
So I think an interesting piece of this story is this is a venture capital firm that acquired CompTIA. And those of you who don't know what CompTIA is, certification company. But that venture capital firm has a number of technology companies as part of its profile. And while I was looking at it, the thing I couldn't figure out is how CompTIA fits in their technology portfolio, other than they're trying to go for the training angle. But maybe you guys have a different perspective on it than I do.
I think they want that sweet training dollars. I think you keep having conversations about 750,000 people need to be trained in information security. And I think that a lot of people, well, if we can get all those people to pay $10,000 of certification, just think of the billions of dollars that we'll have. And that's what they're going after. And like the thing that makes me cry about this is, let's be honest, CompTIA had a 501c. They had a nonprofit organization, right? That was, nonprofit, and what they're going to do is spin that off, right? So it's very, very clear that they're not interested in pursuing the mission of CompTIA and trying to be affordable, because CompTIA certs were relatively affordable. Like people bitched about them all the time, but they were accessible and they were affordable. And for that, my hat's off to them. But they're spinning that particular thing off. And they're going to be focusing on their library. They're going to be focusing on their certifications. And I think they have, how many? 35 million people, 3.5 million people have been certified by CompTIA. That's a lot of people, right?
It's a lot of government.
It is government. And it isn't a matter of just, hey, we're going to make money off these certifications, but it's a reoccurring revenue game, right? It's an idea that people are going to have to recertify. It's the people that are going to have to do CPEs. They're going to have to pay dues like CISSP. And that's just an amazing money-making machine. And I can see why private equity and venture funding is after that, because like it's there. It makes a lot of money, requires very little overhead. So your profit margins are insane compared to like writing a software product. And the likelihood of success is much further. You have much better chance of being successful in doing this because there's much lower risk. The only risk I see with this for Thoma Bravo and H.I.G is this space is saturated, boys and girls. There are a lot of information security companies out there. And there's a lot of information security training companies out there that are doing this affordable, that have a great mission, right? Antisyphon for self-promotion, right? But then you also have, Cyber Mentor. There's a bunch of people in now John Hammond security training. They're all about doing affordable security training, and they're in that space, and they're damn good, right? And more importantly, moving forward, a lot of these firms haven't taken private equity money. They don't have masters that they have to write massive checks to. So they have they have, it's going to be, I think it's going to be easier to stay nimble and stay small and be effective in this space than take on the burden of a huge amount of debt associated with private equity with very little return on how they're going to make the product better.
Yeah, I think, and you hit on the non-for-profit part of it, which
Yep.
is really gross to me, because as long as CompTIA has been around, they've been huge advocates for quote unquote creating IT futures and being very, very community, or trying to be very community involved.
And they've had
trying to
missteps,
accelerate
right?
people.
They've had missteps, but still, hats off.
Yeah, but so now I look at this as we're going to see another price hike, right? We're going to see another kind of barrier for entry for people who are trying to get into this field, because CompTIA has created such a mammoth in what they do for entry level, people looking to get into IT. Now they're just raising that barrier even further. You look at something like the security, like look at Network Plus, for instance, like $390.
Yeah.
And you can get a CCNA for $320 or something. And that is ridiculous to me, that you have this CompTIA cert that's supposed to be entry level, that's more expensive than something like the CCNA, which is 10 times more valuable in a marketing sense than the Network Plus will ever be.
Well,
more
and
practical as well.
Yeah, and Radis brought up the low-cost training is great, but it doesn't have the paper that gets past HR gatekeepers. I want you to know, Radis, there's a bunch of us that are working together, unified, that are competitors, that are desperately going to, we're going to burn that gate down. It's going to happen because it has to, right? And the idea of trying to maximize profits in this day and age, whenever we're having, conversations about info stealer logs, and we're talking about millions of accounts getting compromised. It's like every week something gets hacked with 1 million records. It doesn't even really make the news anymore. I mean, that's a really jaded place for everything to be. So Radis, trust me, there's a number of us in this space that are trying to make it better, and we will. Thank you for sucking at capitalism. Just hope we can continue sucking at capitalism. There's a certain level of capitalism that's needed to suck at capitalism. You can suck too much, and then you're not sucking at capitalism anymore. You're homeless. So,
yeah, I worry about the effect on the community for this. It hurts.
I do too. It hurts.
That's where it hurts the most.
Because I look at this, and then also ISC squared. People love to shit on the CISSP, right? They do, but the fact is that cert is available for people that have put in the time in IT, whether it's at Geek Squad, whether it's been a systems admin, whether it's been working at an MSSP. That gate is there, and that piece of paper does get you past the HR people for hiring. And I think that's phenomenal. It's one of the things I think that's beautiful about this industry, that you don't necessarily need to have an expensive 4-year degree. You can get these cheap certifications and get past HR. But boy, if they start kicking it up, like you're talking about, Zach, if they start kicking these certs up to $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 based on, well, the most people are taking this one, let's double the price. Good God. And they're going to go down in flames more than likely. I don't see them being successful because what's going to happen is they're going to jack up prices to maximize profits. Then they're going to drive down costs within the organization. They're going to lay off a bunch of people. They're going to make customer service far, far, far and away secondary to maximizing the profits. And they're going to end up killing the brand, and it's going to be a slow death. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think that that's going to happen because it happens every goddamn time. So I'm more in the loss of CompTIA before it happens. We were talking about this the other day. There needs to be a word in English of mourning the loss of something you haven't lost yet.
Yeah. But you look at the A+ certification right now, just for one of the exams, because it's 2 exams, but one of the exam vouchers is $253. So you're already paying over $500 for the most basic entry-level certification. And it doesn't necessarily relate to what people are seeing from a practical real-world standpoint these days. And that's what's so frustrating about it on a whole nother level.
Can I interject for a second here?
Absolutely.
My understanding is there are some school districts that, as part of high school education classes, are teaching and helping. They can get the students can get A+ vouchers as part of their high school education program. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, it's a CompTIA Spark program, which they're removing.
CompTIA made that decision, or the investment, or?
That's why I think I read it in an article here somewhere.
All we know is it's being removed.
Yeah,
that's bad.
That's really bad. That's again, this is where the community is really going to suffer, and the people who are trying to get in this field, I feel like, are going to have a difficult time. That's where, like John said, I'm thankful that people like Antisyphon, like Simply Cyber, the Cyber Mentor, John Hammond are coming in and really teaching people some of these things for free or really cheap, but really giving these people like the information they need to be successful.
Oh, and I see people here communicating. They're like, well, but cheap training is cheap. Bullshit. The people that Zach just talked about, I would put them, and I have a little bit of experience in this, I would put them up against any SANS instructor that's ever walked the planet, other than Josh Wright. Josh is amazing. He will kick all our asses. The man is on another level. But that being said, seriously, if you're looking at the quality behind these people, like you look at Jerry, you look at John, you look at the Cyber Mentor, you look at Antisyphon, that quality is there. And it's just, you have people that aren't going for the maximizing profits. But if everything goes to hell, as you said, Zach, just everyone, please remember that for a brief period of time, we had amazing shareholder value. And that ultimately is what matters. By the way, I do want to call out, Hackcar brought up a great point. Speaking of SANS and like Ed Scotus and people that do a tremendous amount for the community, the SANS Holiday Hack Challenge is live. So please go check that out. Ed is one of those people that's out there doing the shit for free and putting his heart right there for the community. So as Andrew just said, let's hack the planet. Let's hack the Holiday Hack Channel. So go do it. It's now open. It's awesome. And if you're scared, don't be. It's a really great place to get involved. There's multiple different levels to the challenges now. So there's easy, medium, and hard level challenges, which I think is great. And you can also do previous years of holiday hack challenges with full step-by-step walkthroughs as well. So with that, let's take it out. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining, and we will see you all next week.
Finger.